So, welcome to the first ever filmed episode of the Better Today podcast. My name's John Lever and I'm the founder of Better Today. The aim of these podcasts is to invite some great guests on, just like my man here, Arthur. And we want to hear their stories about addiction, mental health and everything that comes with it. We want to hear some amazing stories, but we also want to use the podcast to help those that are struggling in their day-to-day battles in life. First up, I just want to say a massive thanks to today's sponsor, Quinn's Car Transport. They're a local company and they're a massive supporter of mental health in the area. Been supporting both Andy's Man Club and Better Today, and I just wanted to say thank you to Sam and all the team down at Quinn's. Please check out quinnscartransport.co.uk for all your car transport needs. First up, today's guest on the first ever filmed episode of the Better Today podcast is a man I met, was it just under a year ago?
A year ago, yeah.
It's gone fast.
I know.
Time's gone fast.
Wow.
He's got a very unique perspective on life and sobriety, and he's someone I really wanted to sit down with. He comes to our meetings on a Wednesday, and a lot of people say they could listen to him talk all day, and I'm one of those people as well. No pressure.
Well, it's all right. It's going to be all day, folks.
Strap yourselves in.
Yeah, get a biscuit and a cup of tea.
Oh, we're well away now, aren't we? We're going to discuss addiction and we're going to discuss mental health. And I just wanted to say first off that on all of these episodes there's going to be lots of trigger points for people, and just to look after yourself. And if you do need to check in with us, please feel free to drop us a message and we can support you. But I think the nature of these kind of discussions and mental health in general is going to be quite difficult at times, but we can't go there without going there, so please just look after yourselves. So please let me introduce Arthur.
Hi, thanks John. Thanks for asking me to do this. It's a bit daunting to begin with, but I'll get into it more as we go along. This is my personal story, my life as it is. Do you want me to tell you a wee bit about me?
Yeah, please, maybe like your childhood and stuff like that, if that's all right.
Yeah, well, I was born in 1950, and on the day I was born, my mother she didn't turn around and say, "Oh God, it's an alcoholic, I don't want one of them, put it back." So she had no idea what was coming. I come from a family that has, my grandfather died of alcoholism, and in 1826 my great-great-great-grandfather signed the pledge and was sober for like 60 years after that. So there's definitely, because I found his diaries and read them, and it was really interesting. So I was born in 1950, a really nice family, nice mum and dad, middle class Edinburgh, and I had a sister who constantly bullied me, but that's got nothing to do with anything to do with my addiction. My family were lovely, and they loved and cared for me, and they kept me in as best they could, because it was just after the war, so there was still rationing and all sorts of things going on then. So it's a different world from where we live today. But I had a private education. Mum and Dad wanted me to go there, and they gave out loads of things. They didn't go on holidays and such like, so I could have a decent education. But there was something about me. They had no idea this was going on. I never felt I fitted in. And yet I had a lovely family. But I didn't feel right. It wasn't the family I didn't fit into, it was the world. And I found it really difficult to relate to other people without people pleasing them, to make them like me, if you like.
Okay.
Yeah. If I'm happy and go lucky, then everybody else will be happy and go lucky, and then the world will be wonderful. But then you come across people who might criticize or might say, "Well, do you think that's quite right?" And I would just go down to the bottom. There was no middle of the road for me. I was either way up there, that's the grandiose attitude of a person that's an addict, or I was way down the bottom. And I kind of lived like that till I was 14 years old. And I was a good sportsman, and I was not a good academic. I had what would be known today as dyslexia and other things. I can't read well, still can't read well, but that doesn't really matter, that's just me. But it was never recognised then, so I was kind of shuffled down to the bottom at school, because it was a private school and they like achievement there. But I recognise that now, but that isn't the reason I became an addict either. I just didn't feel right in my own skin, but I wanted to fit in. So how was I going to do this? And I never discovered how to do it until I was 14 and I had a couple of cans of beer. And those couple of cans of beer made me feel brilliant. I hated the taste, but I was going to acclimatise myself to be able to do it again, even if it was foul. And so that was my introduction to alcohol. In the street, a couple of cans of beer with friends, no problem.
As easy as that.
Yeah. But I didn't immediately go and buy a bottle of whiskey the next day. The next day I just was back to where I was, struggling away with life and trying to fit in again. But I was looking forward to maybe when I could do this again. Maybe I could find an opportunity to have a wee drink. And then it came in, we had youth clubs in those days, and you went along to a youth club and you had like disco music or a band playing, and I could really enjoy myself if I had a couple of cans of beer first, because I was relaxed enough. I didn't feel people were looking at me and criticising me. I mean, I walk down the street and I would think that somebody else is judging me.
Yeah.
But they weren't. Far too interested in themselves.
Absolutely.
I didn't realise that. So I suppose really, when I was 14, I hadn't really matured from 5. And when I found alcohol, it didn't prevent me from maturing, but it was an opportunity not to have to.
Yeah.
So I think I was 14 years old for the next 25 years.
Wow.
I behaved as a 14-year-old for the next 25 years. I wanted people to love and understand me, and I thought, how can I make them do that? So I used to try and people please them into it. And if people loved and understood me, I would be fine. But I wasn't fine. The only time I was fine was actually when I accessed the mind-altering substance of alcohol. Now, if I was born today, I might well have been into cannabis and uppers and downers and all the rest of it. We knew nothing about that in 1964. Although it was starting to come in with the flower power and the rest of it, so they were discovering it. But I never did it because it was illegal. And I was too scared to do anything illegal in case I got caught.
It's one of the areas that I'm really interested in, the battle of one's illegal, one's legal.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, what I'm getting from what you're saying so far is you were searching for something to make you feel different.
To help me fit in to a world I didn't fit into.
And you've accessed something that, for the most part, especially in those days, was regarded as beneficial and good in alcohol.
Yeah. I drank myself into a fantasy land.
That's really interesting.
You're talking about Sean Connery. He was 007. Yeah, James Bond. So I started smoking James Bond cigarettes at the age of 14, and I started drinking his shaky cocktails as well at the age of 16, because I thought, wow, that's grown up. That's where I want to be. So I was kind of living in this fantasy world, but it was through the aid of alcohol. I believe that alcohol was the solution to my life. It worked. It was fast. It was easy. As long as I didn't get caught by, got underage drinking, or when I was trying to sneak a whiskey out of my mum and dad's cupboard and such like. Because when that happened, then my drinking became a little more secretive. So there was another problem starting in there. I was starting to drink, but I had a little guilt about it as well. And I had to get through that, so I became a little more dishonest than I was before.
So what I'm getting here is there's a bit of a transition between something you had just as a young lad to kind of change your state of mind, or to give you the confidence, and then it's something you've go into an effort to hide. So it's almost an acknowledgement that you're doing something wrong or something you shouldn't be.
Yes, because it was criticised by my parents.
Yeah.
And then if I became drunk with my friends, it would be a laugh. It would be fun. Oh, yeah. And then I ended up a few years later phoning people up and asking, well, that was a great night last night, wasn't it? Wanting to know what happened. And wanting to know how I behaved. And people would say, yeah, you were ridiculous, but it was funny. But it wasn't funny.
Do you feel that it's almost like an alter ego? So you kind of got Arthur, this nervous young man, and then Arthur that drinks, that's,
Yeah. Alcohol gave me the courage to do things that I wanted to do. I wanted to be the grandiose king of the castle. So I joined a band when I was 14 and I played music. I love music, still do. But I didn't go on stage to play music without, first of all, accessing the solution to my fear. The solution to my fears that I thought gave me courage, but it was actually suppressing my fears so that I could do what I wanted to do. So I drank every time before I went on stage, and we were only 14 at the time, but we had a good wee band, and then for years and years the band developed into different things, and my drinking increased, but I was learning how much I could have just before without falling off the edge of the stage. And then I would have the promise of a top up at the end of it. As long as I had the promise of just a wee bit more to get to how and where I wanted to be, I was okay.
So it's almost, I'm guessing as well, and I know it's still a bit like it, but in the music industry, performance, bands, singers, alcohol and drugs somewhat were as much of...
That time, very accepted.
Yeah, and also very widely used.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in the reasoning behind it as well, because it's almost like you need something. Like, so if Arthur was just there sober, performing...
Couldn't do it.
So you need something...
Impossible task.
Yeah.
I had to suppress my fears to get the courage to do what I wanted to do, to be that limelight, to be the centre of attention, if you like, to make it feel as if I was worth something from that wee boy that didn't fit in. That wee boy that didn't fit in was still there, but then the drink managed to put it away. The intoxication managed to put it away. And personally, I believe that my problem started on my first drink. That's my perception of it. Because it did for me what I could not do for myself. And it was easy. It was the easier, softer way. Despite the fact that denial and lying and cheating came in the end, it was a solution. And that solution worked. So nobody was going to take it away from me. Which brings up problem number 2. Because I see now that relationships are very, very difficult when there is a mind-altering substance involved, whatever that might be. Relationships are very difficult because the person using that would be me, mind-altering substance, would be dependent on that, rather than having a relation. So there were false relationships with other people outside, but those people wanted to have a proper relationship with me, like, you know, girls, my wife. I got married when I was 23, and, you know, got married when I was 23 because other people did it. I mean, I'm not taking that away from the woman that I loved and I wanted to marry, but I did it because all my mates had done the same thing and I wanted to be part of. But I have it's a kind of addiction's a really, really strange entity altogether, because people deal with it in different ways. I know I've heard people say, yeah, I drank to get drunk. I drank and I got drunk a few times and I had the whirly pits and puked out of the window and had diarrhea and all that sort of messy thing that goes along with the end of a binge drink. And after those instances, maybe 2 or 3 of them when I was in my teens, I drank and tried not to get drunk.
Okay.
I drank to take the edge off, to make me feel okay, and that would be it. And there was a period of my life where I managed that. I thought I managed it anyway. And I could just but I hated getting drunk. I hate being sick. So I would always try and avoid that. But then eventually I built up this tolerance that alcohol has on the body. My body said, okay, you can have this amount and you won't be falling over. So I would take that amount, but that amount started to go up. So the age was 25 and I was married and my first child was on the way. That was the first time that I was challenged by my wife. She said, do you think maybe you could slow down your drinking a little? You know, we go to parties and you're like in the middle of it and you're all centre of attention and everything, but you're always, you know, I'm the one that's suffering from you being drunk. So I thought, well, you know, Arthur, people pleaser, want everybody to be happy. Mm-hmm. My drinking went underground then. It went in the garage. Right. Secret drinking. I'd be first to the bar. I'll get the drinks, because I would have a couple of drinks and then go back to the table with everybody else's.
So
drinks.
essentially you've become more creative. You've wanted to...
I think there's 2 words we could use. You could use creative, or you could use the real word and say devious.
Yes.
Because I became
That's the real one.
Very devious with my alcohol consumption.
And you go into a lot of effort to make sure that things are how you... So you're trying to keep other people happy, so going underground with it, you're still getting access to it, but you're not.
Absolutely.
It's not as public.
Yeah.
And I guess drinkers when they need to be, they can go to a lot of extent to get things how they want them.
Drinking is slightly different from the illegal side, which you mentioned. It was the drinking side. You can go to any pub anywhere, you can go to any off-licence, this is today, anytime, anywhere you like, and you can access booze anywhere you like. It's not criticised. I mean, there will be people like me. I was going into the off-licence saying, oh, I'm having a party tonight and I've got a few friends coming around, so I'll have 2 bottles of vodka and half a dozen cans of beer, and you better chuck in a bottle of sherry as well to make it sound normal. It was all for me. I didn't have anybody coming around.
Right, yeah.
So I was starting making excuses to the people that were selling it to me.
So you're finding ways, aren't you, to validate and justify and
absolutely
creative,
yeah.
It's so like what I'm forgetting as well is like you've gone from this, started off light-hearted and innocent, and then even your wife pick up on it for the first time, and I just wanted to pull back to that. So is that the first time anyone's ever said?
No. I'd been challenged before if I'd had just a wee bit too much to drink or something like. But this was a demand on my general living. When we go out, do you think you could drink a little less? And that was an impossibility for me. So that wife of mine became not my wife and lover and protector, she became the adversary. She became almost the enemy to my drinking. So I had to find ways around that. So if she would actually criticise my drinking, it was a fight. And then I had to look, right, okay, well, I would say, well, look at George down the road. Your best friend, he's worse than me and you're criticising me. And what about you? You had a drink 3 years ago and you were drunk. I would find any way of bringing her down. And it's what addicts and alcoholics do. They bring people down to their level, I think, because it makes them feel comfortable. It certainly made me feel comfortable. I will drag you down and I will make sure that you get the blame for me. Now, I can give you an example of that. After I'd worked for Polydor for 5 years, Polydor Records for 5 years, because I was like the grandiose guy. I was working with all the bands, everything was free. And I was having a life of Raleigh. I was loving it, all the attention, and people would say, wow, you work for Polydor, can you get me this album, and can you get me tickets for this show? No problem at all. I was like king of the castle. I loved it. Then that job kind of finished off, and I didn't know what to do, so any money that I'd made out of that we put into a business and back up in Edinburgh. This because I was working down near London with Polydor, and anyway, we went back to Edinburgh and I bought a shop. Now this is bizarre. The shop was right at the entrance of the mental hospital, the Royal Edinburgh.
Right.
300 alcoholics in there, locked up, not allowed out.
Okay.
Because at that time, insane people were put behind closed doors, and the doors were very special because they had a handle only on one side. That was the outside while you were inside, so you couldn't get out. And all these people used to come down to my shop. They were allowed to come down to the shop and buy their sweeties and their cigarettes and then go straight back to the hospital because I didn't sell booze.
Wow.
And I used to feel so sorry for these people coming in, and I would chat to them about their alcoholism and they would tell me all about it, and I would think, God, I hope I'm never like that. And the weirdest part of this is I had a bottle of whiskey and the crate of lemonade at the back of my shop or under the counter, and I drank from 5 o'clock in the morning onwards all day till I closed at 6 o'clock at night. And at 6 o'clock at night I went to the pub because I was thinking of whiskey, and I would go to the pub for a pint so I could go home, and my wife would say, oh, you smell of whiskey. I went, yeah, I just popped into the pub on the way home. I've had a hard day. Leave me alone. She didn't know I consumed the whole bottle during the day. Now I blame an old woman for this. It was a really cold morning in a winter in Edinburgh, like 6 inches of snow on the ground, and kids were coming in to collect their paper bags so they could go and deliver their papers. And I had a horrendous hangover from the night before, and I needed a drink, but I couldn't quite access it because there was too many people around. This old lady came into the shop. She said, oh, you're not looking so good today, dear. And I went, well, no, I said, I've had a wee celebration last night. Not telling her it was 365 celebrations a year. And anyway, she says, oh, dear, she says, I've got a cure for that. She says, I always have a wee brandy in my coffee in the morning. From that moment onwards, I had a wee whiskey in every single coffee I drank during the day.
So that one message is just...
It was her fault. No, sorry lady, it wasn't your fault. I was looking for a brilliant excuse, a wee tot.
It's almost validation, isn't it? And
make me feel okay about my consumption.
A reason to justify why you're doing what you're doing is okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and it's...
Yeah. And then 1979, after 2.5 years of doing this, I'm round about 2 bottles of whiskey a day at that time, I collapsed. I couldn't do it anymore. Everybody knew, all my whole family knew I was in trouble. Because you can't hide that drunkenness for a long time, not to that extent. Anyhow, so they said, you definitely need help. You have to go see the doctor. You've got to. They wanted to lock me up. I thought, what? You want to lock me up? It's you that's got the problem. Anyway, I went to see the doctor. He sent me off to the Royal Edinburgh Hospital. These were the people that were coming in to see me.
So you're going to the same place as...
Yes, as all my customers. And anyway, I went and I said, I'm not going in. I'll go as an outpatient. And they went, right, okay, you go as an outpatient, you've got to have no drink at all for 6 months. Or you're going into hospital and we're locking you up. Because my behaviour was so bizarre by that time. And I said, and then, so I said, I agreed to the 6 months off the booze, which I managed, a whole 6 months off the booze. And I could not see that my life was getting better. It was. Things were clearing up, I was behaving properly, I was having relationships with people, but the one thing in my head was, 180 days I've got to stay off this. I'm really looking forward to the 181st. And my mind knew that I was allowed because they told me they would make me into a social drinker. Wow, this psychiatrist was the man. So I dragged my wife anyway into the sessions we had, and she came along and I belittled her from start to finish. Well, she's always nagging at me, and we've got 2 kids, she's always moaning about that, and it's no wonder I got as bad as I did, so I blamed it all on her. How awful is that?
And this is one of the things that I wanted to cover. We've spoke before about how addiction affects those around you, and how the delusion of the addict as well, to think that you're fully convinced that she's this, he's that, they've done this, they've done that. And I see it with a lot of people who we work with that very rarely can they take ownership.
Yeah.
And
look at it from the perspective of the actual practicing addict. What are we trying to take away from them? We're trying to take away their solution to life.
yeah.
And anybody who comes to me today and tries to take my solution to life, which is not alcohol anymore, it's recovery. If somebody tried to take that away from me today, I would fight them tooth and nail.
Yeah.
Because I do not want to return to where I was. It's why I've been divorced twice since I stopped drinking. Now, it's 35 years since I've had a drink, over now. And it's 35 years since I went anywhere near anything. I don't do anything at all now. No cannabis, no any uppers, downers. And if the doctor says, here's some cocodamol because you've got pain, I'll go, no, thank you very much. You want some morphine? No, thank you very much, because I will be reliant on it in a very short space of time. So we're trying to take, getting back to that bit, we're trying to take the addict's solution away without offering them a replacement. So that person then becomes the adversary. That person becomes the enemy.
So that's the psychology behind it.
It was for me.
Yeah.
Whether other people identify with that, I don't know. But I would think that they probably will, because my life is all built around recovery people now.
Yeah.
I have very few. I have very few friends who are really good friends if they're ordinary people. Nearly all of my friends are people who have had addiction but have found a solution to it. And it's the same solution as I've got. And that is, I need to change me, not the world. I thought the world needed to change. If your world were better, I would be okay. I now realise that actually I'm the one that has the illness, the sickness, whatever you want to call it, disease. I do call it that. I think addiction is a huge illness that we don't have a handle on. There is hardly any support in mental health nowadays. Or if there is support, we can give you support, but you can't have it for 6 months or 8 months. Well, and my answer to that would be, if I'd had that at the end of my drinking, I would have said, well, I'll be dead before then. Because it's not working. And I think that's where those years, after I'd been through that 6 months with the mental health professionals up in Edinburgh, who really actually didn't have much of a clue, but I'm not putting them down for it. They read things in books, and it's jolly fine and all that, but actually I learned in my life that the only way to understand an illness is to ask the person that's got it. Now, I learned that when I became a paramedic. I studied and became a paramedic after I got sober, and I loved that job. It was great, and they told me in there a really useful line, and that was it. You want to know what's wrong with the person? Ask them. Ask the person that's got it. You'll understand the symptoms and the signs.
That's interesting.
And then, if you understand it, you'll be able to help them. But I think with addiction, the only person that really understands addiction is a person who's been there. We have very good intentioned people who have not been there.
Academics.
And I love them. I love them to bits. Yeah. And they're doing a fantastic job in different areas.
Yeah.
And they're putting things together. That's wonderful. But the only person that really understands me is somebody else who has been where I've been. And I have a spiritual recovery now. And I believe that a spiritual recovery comes from a person who's been to hell. The spiritual recovery comes after you've come back from it. I don't think you can understand that spiritual recovery unless you've been to that hell. Well, when I say I don't think you can understand it, the evidence I have found is that I have a lovely family now. I've got I live down beside my daughter and my son and my grandson, and they love me to bits. But do they have a real handle on my addiction? Probably not.
Yeah.
Except for maybe one member of my family who's been through that addiction, and that person understands, and I can sit and chat about it to them. It's a different addiction to mine, but it's still an addiction of mind-altering substances. And so the relationship between family and me is so much more. It's loving now. But that's not because of them. They've tried to love me all the time.
Yeah.
My wife's trying to love me. Not, I wasn't married at the same time. I had one wife at a time. My first wife, actually, after I had been sober 3.5 years, she turned to me one day and said, "I think you better leave. Can we not have the old Arthur back without the alcohol?" And I went, "No, you can't, because the old Arthur drank. The new Arthur is a real me." Okay. And she found that difficult. Not because I was a horrible person, I was much nicer. But it's not the person she married. So that made the relationship really difficult.
Yeah. So even though it
changed the dynamics.
More positive on the whole, actually, it's
on my side.
On different, yeah.
But I had changed, and she didn't have to.
Yeah.
So therefore, she remained the same.
Okay. Yeah.
And she said one day, "I think you should go." And so I went. It was heartbreaking. I lost my children that day. I lost everything that day. I went on the beach and I cried for hours. And then I sort of pulled myself together. I thought, what am I going to do? I lived in the back of the car for 2 months. Out the back of the car, we had 2 cars in the family, and she gave me one of them. And I lived out the back of the car for 2 months. So I was kind of homeless for 2 months. 3 years into recovery, 3.5 years into recovery. And I thought, what am I doing? But the last thing I was going to do was have a drink.
Is this one of these moments, do you know, like these like wake up moments, or one of these like really significant points in life that the thing that stuck in my head, the people from the hospital came to visit you, and then you ended up being in the hospital further down the line. That must have been quite a powerful experience. And then this point where you find yourself, you've left your family, you're living in the car, you're homeless. What sort of things are going through your head at this point?
It's an emotional roller coaster at that point, because I didn't have a contact with my children. Well, just very brief contact with my children. My daughter stopped speaking to me for quite some time because she felt that I had let her down, and I understand that, and it must have been really difficult for her. But for me, I had because I was a member of AA at the time, and that was where my recovery started in Alcoholics Anonymous. I chose that at the end of my drinking because there was nowhere else to go. Back in 1989, there was no Better Today. There was no Rotherham recovery programme, I wasn't in Rotherham, I was up in Northumberland, but there was no recovery programmes at all. It didn't exist. It did exist, and as an absolute last resort, I rang them up because I had reached the end. Why I had changed, I don't understand it myself even today, and I don't try to explain it. But I was setting off fireworks for my son's birthday party. He was 12 years old. I'd always done that because he was born on the 5th of November. And great thing, so we had 100 kids coming to the firework display, and I thought, well, you know what they say in the adverts, it said, don't give children fireworks, give it to the adult who's pissed. And anyway, that was me, and 4 friends came up to me. I mean, they were good friends. I'd taught them karate for 10 years. And, they weren't softies. And I thought, I wonder why they're coming up. Anyway, they came along and they said, actually, we've smelt drink on you, and we think maybe you've had a drink and you shouldn't be setting off the fireworks. And for some reason, it didn't end up in a fight, where it had done for the previous 10 years. If anybody challenged me like that, there was trouble. But this time, I went, you know what? I'm sick and tired of this. And I had a bottle of vodka in the back of my car, ready to drink when I'd finished, present to me, because I'd already had a bottle of vodka during the day so that I could set off the fireworks and be the normal dad. And this time I thought, stuff it. Don't want to do this. Don't want to do this anymore. And I walked off and left them to run the party, 100 people there. And they ran my son's party for me. And I'm blessed they did that. It put them in a position, those people in a position where they had to find the courage to go. They must have chatted about it and said, how are we going to stop doing this? We have to do something. It's too dangerous. And anyway, they did find the courage to come up and do it. There was no trouble. I went, fine, okay, I'm off. And at that moment, something snapped in my head, said, I am sick and tired of this. When I say I'm sick and tired of it, I had no idea what to do or where to go or whatever it was. So I went home, and then my wife came back. She'd been told I was drunk. And I was sitting in front of the fire, and she went, you don't look drunk. And I went, well, I've had a lot to drink, but I don't feel intoxicated. I don't know what's going on. She said, I can't go on like this. It's got to stop. Because everybody knew about my drinking and was sympathetic to her. she felt it was her fault. She took responsibility. Oh, it must be because I'm a nagging wife or I'm a bad wife or whatever. So I put her right down, the same as my rest of my family. I blamed them for my drinking. So at this point I said, okay, give us a chance. I'll phone AA tomorrow because that's the only thing left. I don't know what they do, but we'll give it a go. So I phoned them up and they said, he said, what's the problem? I said, well, I can stop drinking. I've done it loads of times, but I can't stay stopped and I don't know why. They said, sounds like you're ready for an AA meeting then. Come along and see us. So I did. I went and saw them. Now, I went in, there were 6 people round the table. They asked me in. That's crucial. I was accepted as a drinker, an alcoholic, an addict. They said, come in, we like you, we want you to be here, we want you to get what we've got, and if you stay, you might have a chance of having it. So I went along and I just fitted in. Nobody said, you've got to stop drinking. Nobody said, you've got to stop spending your money. And, if you stop drinking, we'll give you £6,000. If you do this, there were no conditions. There were no psychiatrist conditions. There were no counsellor conditions. They just said, sit down, have a cup of tea, and we'll chat about it, see how you get on. So I thought, a bit like we do it better today. Just sit down and be accepted.
No pressure, no judgment.
For the last 15 years, people had put conditions on me being there. My family put conditions on me being. If you don't drink, you can be here. If you don't drink, we can go to this party. If you don't drink, we can go to this, meet these people. There were no conditions in this one. They just said, the door swings both ways, please yourself. That is I think is one of the crucial parts of the beginning of recovery, is that acceptance by other recovering addicts. Whether it be AA or not, they give me a program to work, which I work, and it's wonderful for me. So I'm not all sort of must go to AA, must do this, must go to NA or whatever. What I believe is that it's worked for me, so I stick with it. I've seen recovery work for other people, and if they stick with the principles and how they're doing it, it keeps working. But if we revert back to old ways of thinking, which would be very easy for me, if I didn't stick with the principles I've been given. The principles I've been given in life, never mind AA, in life is, if I'm fair and reasonable and polite and honest, I become trustworthy in the eyes of other people.
Okay.
And when I become trustworthy in the eyes of other people, they can then approach me and show me the love and understanding I've always wanted since I mentioned when I was a wee boy. And it makes me fit in. And I can fit into this world where I think, yeah, it's not such a bad place. And instead of being a taker in life, which I suppose I was when I was a wee boy, if you're nice to me, if everybody's wonderful around me, I'll be happy. Now, if I give that away to people, get it straight back. I didn't know that. So when I say I didn't mature, I was 14 years old when I was 39, when I gave up drinking. That's when I started to mature. When I began to understand that life is not about taking, it's about giving. And it's not about having a big Mercedes or other things. And I've had all these big Mercedes and things, even since I was sober. I've had all those things. And back in 2006, when I developed PTSD in the ambulance service, it was horrendous. I had seen awful things. The final one was 5 children in a car, hit a tree at 100 miles an hour. they were demolished. They weren't dead, they were demolished, and we arrived on scene. I had to administer care for most of them who died. And something inside me sort of snapped again. And I think, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. And it was the most wonderful job to do, was to help other people. People say, oh yeah, you've been a paramedic, you've been saving people's lives. No, we don't. We prevent people from dying so we can give them to people who might be able to save their lives in the hospital.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the job, but we get the dirty end of the stick. And that really affected me, because it was time after time after time. I wasn't processing it. All my friends in the ambulance service used to go and have a wee drink afterwards first, or use whatever tool they had to suppress the feelings. I had to go home, have a bath and a cup of tea. Used to go and tell my wife about it, but then she went, don't think I really want to hear this anymore. Yeah. And I used to go to AA meetings sometimes and share a little bit, and they went, we really don't want to hear this. We can't cope.
So your opportunity to offload.
Couldn't put it anywhere.
Yeah.
So I went to the psychiatrist, 4 actually psychiatrists, so I got passed around, and they went, you can't do this anymore. If you do this, you will end up killing yourself, because your mind isn't coping with it. So once again, suicide comes into the thoughts of my mind, like it did at the end of my drinking. Now it was coming in because of the PTSD, and I didn't want that. So my wife and I decided to give everything up. We had a lovely bungalow, 4-bedroom bungalow, and 2 Mercedes, and we had sort of 90,000 pound coming into the house. We both said, let's chuck it. And we had a 6-year-old daughter at the time between us. This is my second wife. And that day we said, right, let's put this into process. So we sold the house, sold the cars, sold all the furniture, bought a ticket for the Canary Islands, and the 3 of us got on a plane with a really big suitcase each and went to live in the Canary Islands. A part-time job. My wife had applied for a part-time job and she got that, and I had nothing. But what was in the Canary Islands, this is the important part, what was in the Canary Islands was a solution for me.
Okay.
I'd been to the psychiatrist here, and all the psychiatrists said the same thing. So you can't do this job anymore, it will destroy you. You can't ever go back to doing it. And I thought, shit, that's the nicest job I ever had. I loved it, but I couldn't do it anymore. And they said, we need to give you treatment and such like, but we can't, because there's no help for at least 6 to 9 months. For a person who was suicidal with PTSD, no solution for 6 to. I think it's worse now than it was. So we went to the Canary Islands, and when I was there, this is really weird. I went to an AA meeting, because they're all over the world, and I thought, yeah, that's nice. I've got this support anywhere I want it, so that was good for me. So I went there, and in the meeting, there was this guy called Professor Michael Seltzer, and he was a recovering heroin addict. And he was about 68 years old, something like that. And he was in the meeting, and so I was telling my story, and he went, "Can I have a wee word with you at the end?" So I went, yeah. So I had a wee chat. He said, "I've worked with the Vietnam veterans for years, and we put a program together." And he said, "I'm a professor at Oslo University." And he said, "We put a program together, and I've worked with these people for years and years." And he said, "I think I can help you, if you would like, because we're in the same fellowship, and I would like to do it for nothing." And if it hadn't been for that man, I don't think I would have seen it through. So in a way, it kind of saved my life again. These are interventions I don't plan.
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking, is it's an unexpected
I think it's God-given.
It's
Depending
happened for a
what
reason.
anybody believes. I really
But
believe.
you've up sticks, moved somewhere, and then you've stumbled upon each other, but it's for a reason.
And at this time, I'd actually qualified as a counsellor when I got sober, and I went to university and became a counsellor, and I took those skills across the Canary Islands and became a counsellor across there for English-speaking people with addiction problems and relationship problems, and it was quite successful, and I absolutely loved it. They were Dutch, they were Scandinavian, Icelandic, all English speaking, and one British person, and yet there were 10,000 British people on that island. But it kind of was like the Europeans wanted recovery, and they have a different attitude towards it than we do. It is a wonderful attitude, and a lot of them are now still alive and sober, and it's fantastic. I met a guy pulled up at our door one day, and he was on his Harley Davidson, a previous member of the Hells Angels, and he said, "Arthur, I want the recovery," and I went, "Oh, okay." Looking up at him like that, and he became a really, really good friend, and still is a good friend. I meet loads of people who are wonderful people. I actually think, this is my view again, I think the most wonderful people are people who have addictive personalities, where we are super sensitive. We have this grandiose attitude that we like to know everything, like to be in a position of responsibility, but we also have a childlike way of dealing with them, with things. Like if I get criticism, I go on a defensive. If somebody, I can be brought right down like that just by a word or a couple of words, and it's childlike, really. But I'm like that. So I'm super sensitive. I've got this grandiose, and I'm childlike, and I absolutely love it. I was told when I was a kid, "Oh, you're too sensitive, get over it." How awful is that to tell anybody? But that's how it was. I think that sometimes it's still like that now. In some families, it's like, "Oh, be a man. Be a man." What's a man? A man is a sensitive, sentient being, just the same as a woman is, or whatever you want to identify as. But we are all sentient beings, and if we can recognise that, I think that gives the young men of this world a chance, because I believe through evidence that it's a very difficult world for young men to live into. And yet, when I look at the statistics of people going into recovery now, there's the same amount of women as men. It used to be all men when I got sober. You find one or two women, but very unusual. But now it's probably over 50% are females, and they're not like 60-year-old. They're in the 20s.
It's really interesting, and something I was going to pull you back to actually, and it applies to any sex, gender, whatever. Through your journey, when you were mapping it out and I were listening, at some point there's been a change from someone who drinks, whether it's for more confidence or just because it's something you started doing, and then at some point, and I think about my own journey and other people around me, things change, and there isn't this like defined marker where this is all alright and it's just, you're just a social drinker and everything's to have fun, and then you cross that line and then you're an addict. But where is this? And I know there's no set answer, but I'm thinking for people that are watching that
I think there is an answer.
Is there?
Yeah, in my opinion, is that if I look at my own journey, As I increased my intake of alcohol, my body adjusted to it. So that's from the first drink onwards. They said, it goes, oh, look, that's nice. Bit of alcohol, made you feel different. Fantastic, have another one. And as my tolerance increased, my body said, brilliant, keep it coming. So it's a gradual progression. But somewhere along that line, I don't think there's anywhere I could have stopped. So there's no crossing point for me. I needed a solution to my life. It was alcohol or whatever substance. I used to drink the kids' Calpol and Night Nurse and everything when I couldn't access alcohol. So I was as much a drug addict as anybody else. I just didn't use the illegal ones. I bought them out of a chemist. The legalised drug dealers. Sorry, I didn't say that. So my body gradually became, and as the tolerance went up, then suddenly the body changes a little, goes, oh, there's too much coming in now, you're becoming ill, and starts to shut down my organs. My liver, my kidneys don't work properly. I was in hospital for kidney tests and liver tests and things like that. And I used to say to people, I've never been hospitalised for alcoholism. Well, actually I have. I was never put in for being intoxicated. But I was, because my body was shutting down with the different ones. And then, 3 months before I stopped drinking, the doctor told me after blood tests, you have 6 months left, mate, if you drink the same way you're going. So I thought, I better just drink for 3 then. That's insanity. But that's the way I thought.
So instead of, right, it's time to sort things, it's that's...
Well, I better slow down a bit in the future then. And in all honesty, when he told me I had 6 months to live, I was relieved at that point. Because at that point, my family was tired, my friends had all disappeared, I had no social life whatsoever, apart from having a drink. And most of it was in my garage. And the insane part of it was I had a greenhouse in the garden, and I used to go out to the greenhouse to drink, thinking it was a secret. It's glass. There's no secret there. But my insane brain went, well, this is my little house, and eventually I put bubble wrap inside because, but then I had a light inside it. As if nobody could see me because there's bubble wrap there, but I have a light inside it so I could do it at night time.
Do you know what?
That's insanity.
Yeah, and what you just said there, so say if someone got a terminal illness and someone said you've got 6 months to live, let's say cancer.
Yeah.
You would expect the majority of people would be like devastated, shocked, not knowing what to do. But what you're saying here, from an addict's perspective, is there's some sort of relief, some sort of like...
Absolutely.
It's the opposite end of this. Yeah. So
this will be the end of it. And I hadn't told anybody in the family that the doctor had said this, but I didn't want them to know. I thought it's a relief, really, isn't it? And funnily enough, I tried suicide at the end of my drinking, just before that happened. I'd taken all the pills that the doctor had prescribed me for anxiety and the rest of it, because that's evidently what was wrong with me. It wasn't alcohol at all. It was extreme anxiety, which is just such a load of rubbish. It was alcohol, and they gave me pills to try and counteract the feelings that I was getting. So I took them all, and apparently, as far as I know, I died that night. I had a near-death experience. I felt myself, all I knew was a complete consciousness in my unconsciousness, and I was drifting away somewhere else. But it was almost like a hand came and said, not ready yet, Arthur.
Wow.
And I physically felt it. I don't know, brain's a funny thing anyway. But that's what happened to me. And then, evidently, I woke up 4 days later. I woke up, or came to, and all I could do was crawl to the toilet and back. And then after a week of doing that, I wanted to put my clothes on and go and buy a bottle of vodka. Where is the sanity in that? And my wife told me later on, after I got sober, I said, what happened to me that night? She went, I've got no intention of telling you after what you've put me through. She said, but I did sit on the end of the bed and think, well, thank God for that, he's gone. That was a person that loved me. Childhood sweethearts. And addiction had destroyed her self-worth that much. And we do that to our partners, our family, our friends, and that's why they let us go at the end, because they can't handle it anymore. So I became isolated and alone, and that's the one place that I needed to be so I could actually access recovery and start something.
So it's the lowest of
a whole load of rock bottoms.
Because there's so many instances that you've explained, yet it still seems appropriate to go back to alcohol no matter what happens, no matter how bad it is.
The only solution.
Only solution.
Until I was offered a new solution, and that was, we've got a thing called the serenity prayer. So it's God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change. So it's not God give me sobriety or cleanness or whatever. It's God grant me to accept the things I can't change. I can't change the fact that I'm an addict. So I'm totally happy about it. I love being an addict. I am such a decent person now. Well, I'm saying that, but I like myself. I think I love my family. My family tell me they love me. That never happened while I was drinking. I make friends now all over, and they love me. They tell me they do, and I still don't really understand it, but that's the way it is. It's because I behave. I'm fair, reasonable, polite and honest, and become trustworthy. And then people, instead of me, and there is a thing where, have I become tolerant? I don't believe there's any humility in that whatsoever. And I think humility is one really big part of being a decent, recovering addict. That humility. To understand how people feel. I actually like to think people can tolerate me now. It's the reverse side of the coin. So I become tolerable to other people. I become lovable to other people. I become amiable, likable to other people because of the way I behave now. I don't make them do it. I give them the opportunity to do that now because they're nice people in the end. There's a lot of rotten eggs in this world, and there's a lot of people who are searching for the desire to be king of the castle. We can see that in America and Russia at the moment. Two guys wanting to be king of the castle. It's all about them. It's not about the lovely human beings that are on this earth. It's about material gain. And we've got to have everything that nobody else has got, and then everything will be okay. Well, I don't subscribe to that. I subscribe to the lovely people that I meet on a Wednesday night at Better Today. They make me feel well. Really, they do. Because they bring their troubles along, and if I can in any way help somebody along to come to a group like that, then I will. If there's any way I can help within the group, I will. I'm not looking to be king of the castle. I just want other people to experience and access what I've got, what I've been given freely. Didn't have to pay for this. I didn't have to pay for therapy or anything. I was just invited in a door and they said, there's a solution in here if you want. So the Serenity Prayer says, accept the things I can't change. That is, people, places and things. Everything. I can't change anything. I am powerless.
Yeah.
The only thing I have any power over is my behaviour, my attitudes and my beliefs, which comes in the second line of the Serenity Prayer, which says, courage to change the things you can. The only thing I can change is my attitudes, beliefs, and my daily living, so that I can be somebody that can give and not take anymore. And that gives me so much. And then you've got the third line of Serenity Prayer, which is wisdom to know the difference. Well, it's not the wisdom. It just says it's to be given wisdom. And the only way I can get any wisdom about anything is to have full knowledge of my condition. Then I can decide whether I can change something or not. If I know my condition. Not about understanding other people's. And if I can share that and other people think I might have a go with that. I mean, there was a guy 2,000 years ago called Jesus. He walked around in the sand, bare feet, little robe on, and he went, are you sick of the way you're behaving? And these tax inspector and the drunken fishermen and the other people went, and the prostitute said, yeah, we're sick of it. He said, well, do what I'm doing then. Simple. Nothing complicated about it. So it's kind of, that's the person I most admire in this whole human, well, if he was human, whatever it is, thing. I love it. It's how I want to be. And this is listening, oh God, everybody's listening going, he thinks he's Jesus. No, I don't. No. But I would like to emulate that type of behaviour.
And that's what I would...
So it's not religious, it's about that type of behaviour.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, as kind of a closing question, if someone is listening and they're struggling, whether it's addiction, whether they're in early addiction, whether they're just a binge drinker, whether they're at some of the lowest of low points that you were at, this is quite an open question and probably one we can't nail in a minute, but have you got any advice or any words for anyone that's listening to help them or to help them in their recovery?
Well, one crucial part is stop looking at other people and look at yourself, because it's you that has the addiction, and there is something beyond that addiction, and it's called recovery, and that recovery is an absolute blessing. It's peaceful, it's enjoyable. You can do, I've done all the things that I wanted to do. When I was 50 years old, I trained again and I became an instructor with the Karate Union of Great Britain. I always wanted to do that but I gave up karate when I was drinking because I've preferred the drink or the addiction. So it's about looking at ourselves and saying, where am I? What am I doing? Never mind what the reasons are. We can always find reasons for our behaviour. It's about having a look and saying, do I want to do this anymore? People are just criticising me all the time, and life is so difficult. If you're a drinker, you've got to go out and you've got to buy it. You've got to justify it. If you're living with people, you've got to hide it. Then you've got to get rid of the empties. Then you've got to find the money to buy the next one. If you're actually addicted to drugs, you've got to find the money to do it. Can you do it in a way which doesn't affect other people? No, you've got to steal it. You've got to criminalise yourself. And do I behave properly? You know, what sort of example am I giving to younger people coming along, whether they be your own children or other people's children? Are you taking the substances so you can live as a normal human being? There is another way, but you have to question yourself. Other people are not going to do it for you.
And that's one thing I've got from listening to your story, is that you've had to find it within yourself after a long time of blaming others and finding excuses. That ownership has allowed you to move forward.
Yes. Yeah. I am responsible. That's the phrase. I am responsible for my behaviour and the way I behave. There are too many people now looking for other reasons for them being this way. I'm responsible. I'm the one that can change myself. Other people will not be able to do that, because if I look at other human beings, I just think, oh dear, here's conflict and here's confusion. I don't want any of that in my life. I just want to be, I am really happy to say that my name is Arthur, and I'm an alcoholic, I am an addict. I cannot take mind-altering substances safely. But that does not exclude the fact that I buy ice cream, put it in the bottom of my freezer, and I think, right, that's for the week. Tomorrow, it's gone.
Yeah.
There's no, and I can have, and I'm really, so if I got a packet of biscuits, I really, really like them, I put them in the cupboard in the kitchen, I'm sitting watching the telly thinking I'll just have one so with my cup of tea, and I have that one with my cup of tea, and within 30 seconds, I'm up getting another one. And I will eat them till I feel sick and wish I hadn't. Because I have that kind of...
The psychology is the...
alcoholic personality, addictive personality, that will say, you like that, Arthur? Have a little bit more. So I have to be aware of that. But I love it now. It's almost like a challenge. And I laugh at myself. When my daughter, the last thing, if you want, when my daughter was 6 years old, I had this thing where, and this is where my little addictive personality can be a little bit naughty. There's a thing called Happy Hippos. They come in a packet and they're made by Kinder. I love them. Absolutely love these Happy Hippos. So I used to buy about 3 packets of them and put them in the freezer because I like them frozen. And I'll go and get one at a time, of course. And then 5 minutes later, I'm back in the freezer getting another one. Anyway, my little 6-year-old daughter was aware of this because I used to give her one now and again because she loved them as well. And I say, well, can I have another one, Dad? I'll go, no, there's none left. Still 3 packets left in the freezer, but they're mine. I am still, I just, and that gave me a really guilty conscience. And then I thought, how can it be like that? But she's 25 now, she still reminds me, remember that time when you had the Happy Hippos? You wouldn't give me one. That was nice, Dad. But great relationship. Honesty. But I'd still be a little bit devious if I want. It's still there.
The connections is so...
I could not go back to a mind-altering substance because I would be dead in a very short amount of time. I can't do it. So I don't. Therefore I have to stick around people who are doing the same, like yourself. People who are clean and sober. I love people who are ordinary people, but I identify with people who are the same as me. That is very comforting to know that I'm not the only one in the world.
You're a top man, Arthur.
So there you go. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.